sometimes like we all have to like, guess, what the regulators mean or what the politicians are going to do. All the licensed entities, like the regulators just tell us, like, we're going to go do this, and this is who we're going to go prosecute and why. And so I get to sound like I'm really smart and I can read the future. They just tell us, right? So with that, why don't I show you guys some slides about Everest, and
Sure.
we can do some Q&A. Okay.
Yeah, I wish I could see the future, but unfortunately, it's hard. All right, we can see your slides.
Great. So as you introduced, we do have a full stack platform. So think of a vertical integration that has identity, wallet, stablecoin, chains, and we're a licensed custodian. So what does that mean? We do biometric identity with KYC and a payment platform. We are a licensed crypto custodian, a little bit like Paxos, if you will. And we have a global correspondent network of fiat and crypto accounts around the world. We do have, and I'm pretty sure we are the first regulated, licensed, programmable stablecoin, which is fiat backed, which again, Europe, US, Japan, Singapore, everyone is headed towards one law, one interpretation of FATF, which is going to be fiat backed one-to-one stablecoins in a licensed bank. If you don't do that, good luck to you at the end of 2022. And we do have a fast, cost-effective ledger. Sidechain right now, we're coming out with our L1 in a couple months, and bridges to all of the major EVMs. And we've worked with some of the majors, both traditional finance and crypto. So a bit of background, we did actually onboard the adult population of Samoa. We also worked with the central bank doing their compliance platform. Historically, we also worked with BRI Bank and the government of Indonesia. This was to deliver their energy subsidy. So it was program money, attach it to somebody's face, and then literally users in the villages were showing up with a shirt on their back. BRI Bank would scan their face with a phone, and they would get, if you will, redeem their stable coin. We have a couple patents pending on how to actually do a global cloud wallet with your biometrics. Work with Visa to actually got a couple of awards from them. Working with the Central Bank of Papua New Guinea and actually Kina Bank, they're also doing cross-border. All that background of working with governments and B2B to see we're now transitioning into a direct-to-consumer platform where you can buy, trade, sell, send money, etc. As I mentioned, we're the first to receive a VFA license for this stablecoin. This is out of Malta, part of the European Union. We do full compliance, and our correspondent network, as I mentioned, is both fiat and crypto. The accounts are all there, and now we're just actually spending most of our development time just wiring up APIs all over the place. You can imagine. So let's talk about how we think about mass market DeFi and why there's an issue, which is users in traditional finance, they want to be able to literally be able to move seamlessly between their fiat custodians, the banks, and the crypto custodians, exchanges or wherever, and then all the DEXs on permissionless chains. And like, how do you seamlessly and easily go in between all these things? And it's hard right now. Like, it's more than a UI and a UX. It's actually like, okay, the banks and the brokerages need to know almost everything. The crypto exchanges, not very many of them have their own chains, nor can they offer liquidity pools. And the DEXs are, well, they're still permissionless with no KYC. And as we're seeing, it's not going to be legally scalable. A bit of background, I was general manager at BitTorrent, and I saw firsthand what decentralized governance gets you, and it can get you so far. And then if you're just doing a protocol, fine and dandy. If you can turn something off like Kazaa or Morpheus or any of those other guys, you'll get sued out of existence. And so there's a regulation coming that's going to be very, it's going to be very precise. So current status is it's not going to be mass market. That is, how do you get my mom to do it? How do we get to 1 billion people? And considering the friction we have in this system, it's tough. So let me walk you through the basics of whatever is built to address this. So we have an identity. So this is private, user-controlled with biometrics, eKYC, and names. It's more than credential sharing. So there's a lot of folks in the blockchain world that just share proofs of each other, but they don't create an identity. That is, here's a biometric identity like the nation of Canada does and says, in their case, in a centralized database. We create an identity that's distributed and really only the user can open it. So think of a nation state that you can actually prove for the first time in human history, you are who you say you are. This live piece of carbon is you, right? That's all attached to an account. The account is in the ERC20 wallet with storage, so you can hold documents and credentials. And again, we're licensed to be able to take deposits and execute transactions. Stablecoin, you got to have a currency to make sure all this flows. And you have to have a ledger, right? And it has to be fast and cheap. So I like to point out, if you were building an e-government platform or an e-bank, these are the 4 elements you need. This is literally modeled after India Stack plus Autohar or e-Estonia. Identity with an account with a stablecoin and a ledger. That 4 things. And if you don't have those 4 things, there's only so much you can do in an economy. So let's look at DEXs, like the existing ones, Uni, Sushi, Pancake. So what the regulators are pointing out to everyone is they're transfer agents and they're going to need a license. And if you have a license, that means you have the obligations to enforce compliance rules. The Americans at least want BSA, bank secrecy, right? You have to do reporting, and you have to have eKYC or identity verification at some level, depending on the thresholds you're at. Again, I'm not really guessing on this one. Like, this is what they're going to say, and the question will be who enforces it, where and when, and how big the enforcement is. But this is happening. Now, again, the users in traditional finance want to get into this game because that's where all the darn yield is. And how do they do that, right? So Everest is helping them with identity verification with eKYC, account creation with fiat in and out, right? So if you look at our previous stack, this is ways where we can start bringing in Brazil, literally 2 clicks, US, 2 clicks from your bank account in. Verified, you have an account, and now I can get to crypto and go deposit it. But the DEXs, they're going to need to do this too. And so if you're one of the existing DEXs and you're now going to have these requirements, we can help, right? So not only is there ID verification, eKYC, we then also do the license, compliance rules with BSA and reporting. That's literally what our platform does all by itself. So having a DEX white label that service is pretty straightforward. The other thing worth mentioning here is everyone gets a little freaked out about identity verification sharing too much. And again, although I have an American accent, we're a European company where we have GDPR privacy controls. By the way, audited, verified GDPR compliance. But we also have MLD5, which is the AML rules there that say anything above a couple €100 has to be reported. And so there's a way to do this where users only have to share the bare minimum amount for a given transaction, right? It's not, here's my driver's license or national ID card, where you get my gender, you get my age, you get the other things that really aren't relevant to the transaction. And so we do very granular sharing of identity attributes just for what's appropriate, which basically means we've programmed in privacy per the law. That is, below a certain threshold, the government can't see, and we can verify it in code, certain attributes about you, right? Now, if you were going to run DeFi on Everchain itself, again, we have our own ledger, sidechain now going to L1. We built a hub out to most of the major EVMs. If you think about our stack, this is kind of how it looks. You can do identity data in. So again, you got biometrics, KYC. It's actually in code attached to the account, which has crypto. We actually have fiat accounts also with credentials and docs. So you can do fiat in and out pretty easily. We also have tokens, right? So tokens can come across this, be it the ID token from Everest or ETH. All hitting Everchain, right? This ledger that's very similar to BSC and Polygon. And our licensed programmable stablecoin. By the way, it's any fiat. That is, we can take euros, dollars, pesos, rupiah, whatever in, and then mirror that in the stablecoin globally. And then ultimately, you have to have liquidity pools that are actually known individuals. These are not North Koreans or anyone on the OFAC list that actually would get traditional finance in trouble for not knowing who the counterparty is or trading with someone like that. And so we help enable that also. So for us, we built this entire stack basically with an access token, right? And so if you remember at the outset, how do you seamlessly transfer between all of these elements? Well, we have fiat custodians, and we are a crypto custodian, and we have a chain that accesses all the other chains. And so from this basis, getting into how do we make it mass market, here's a one-stop access that, if you will, puts a layer above the complexity and the legal requirements of what's coming on DeFi. So it was brief, but why don't I pause here and say thank you and see if there are any questions.
Yeah, at this point, you guys, attendees in the meetup, you can put your questions in the chat, but since we're not such a big group, you can also take the mic, and Alim usually does the moderation at this point.
Great.
Yep, sure. Maybe I'll kick it off with the first question. Great presentation, Bob, by the way. Thank you. Just curious, just in terms of I guess the Everest ledger, is that a centralized ledger, or is that blockchain based? And what kind of consensus algorithm are you using there?
Great question. We have a few chains actually. We have an identity chain, which is permissioned, and we split the governance in order to prevent anyone being able to see actually get into other people's identity. The side chain we're running right now is permissioned. I actually affectionately call it the reg chain, for regulated chain. What we've announced though is that, and by the way, proof of authority, similar like BSC, where they forked Ethereum's POA CLICA standard, we did something similar. And similarly, what you'll see from us in February or maybe early March will be something more like BSC, and they took their POA EVM fork, tweaked the consensus, to make it a little faster and cheaper. And that will be permissionless. So think of, we'll still have our sidechain that's for regulated financial transactions. And then we're going to have an open permissionless one that connects to Moonbeam, Ethereum, AVAX, BSC, Polygon. As a matter of fact, we've already announced the interoperability with Polygon. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it absolutely does. And maybe just one follow-up. Sorry, I don't mean to hog your time here because there are some other questions in the chat, but just around the open permissionless, I guess, chain, do you plan for decentralized governance around that, or will it still be centrally controlled by the mothership, let's say Everest?
No, absolutely. It is 100 nodes that actually the community's already voted on the burning, the rewards, the pricing. So it looks a lot like, in terms of governance, it'll be a lot like what Vitalik and Ethereum Foundation did with 1559 of, we did a proposal out to the community voted, and being adopted by validators. And so validators will be very much running that permissionless chain going forward.
Awesome. It's great to hear. We've got some more questions here from our audience. So from Rory, sorry, let me just go back here. Any idea how regulators plan to enforce regulation against anonymously funded DEXs?
Yes. I asked them the same thing. It was like, what are you going to do? Like, there's 5 guys in a basement that are doing a protocol. How are you going to stop that? What was interesting is they had an immediate response, literally less than a second, which told me they had already thought it through, which was, great. You think we don't know where Maki lives in Fukuoka? Second, do you think we don't know what the wallet address actually collects those profits? Mm-hmm. As soon as they go that, and all we have to do is say that's now the equivalent of a North Korean bank, which is, if anybody touches it, if you try to transfer it, elliptic chainalysis, everybody in the world will know how to track back to that. It'll basically be like ransomware. So they can actually tag the profit-making wallet mm-hmm. and make it disincentivize teams from collecting profit there. Mm-hmm. If there's no profit, then probably in that case, there's probably nothing to be done there. But they're thinking about it. But I agree, enforcement on this is going to be hard.
It is going to be hard, I guess. Well, I know in Canada, I think the RCMP has already engaged CipherTrace, but with the use of mixers and things like Tornado Cash, and it will become difficult. But
by the way,
evolving.
How many centralized exchanges or licensed entities do you think can touch Tornado Cash or Monero or Zcash?
0.
That's right. So it's one of those things, as soon as you do that, as soon as you go through one of those, you're tainted. You're going to be tainted certainly forever getting out to fiat. And then the question is, what can you really do now that you're walking around with kryptonite crypto? Mm-hmm. Right? You can do some. People will be fine. They'll figure out a way. But I think the regulators are going to make it hard, just like they did with BitTorrent, to make it a smaller percentage of the total economy. Which, again, I'm just kind of reporting the news. I see this actually as a positive in a way that we can get to 1 billion people. Because if they don't make it legally compliant, then it's going to stay in the 100 million user kind of range, right? Mm-hmm.
Yep. I got another question here from Evan. I'm not sure if it's directly related to Everest, but how does something like zero knowledge proofs affect the way DeFi applications will interact with decentralized identity? Oh, sorry, it is related.
Yeah. So give me a sense. You'll see from us very quickly, like I said, here's my proof of address, proof of humanness and uniqueness. Here's my KYC status. I should be able to share that as a zero knowledge proof, by the way, probably in the form of an NFT. There's a token I can send to someone and go, here's the proof that says this wallet is a live human being, not on the money laundering or terrorist list, and if you will, not on any sanctions list, right? So, and that's effectively a zero knowledge proof. And I think that should be good enough. I mean, we even have 75-year-old US congressmen and senators talking about that, going like, you don't need to know everybody's DNA sample in order to actually do a $600 transaction. You should just be able to know that the other person is compliant.
Mm-hmm.
So we're big fans of zero knowledge proof. It's a long-winded way of saying that.
Yeah, that's great. And I think just on a decentralized, well, ZK-based identity solutions, I think there's another one that's being used in the DeFi space called ZK Cloak, if I'm not mistaken. That's fairly new, but something else to keep a pulse on, I guess. Follow up to that last question. How would you describe your relationship with Chainlink and Oracles?
Sure. So we have an announced relationship with Chainlink. Really, I mean, like those guys a lot. If you think about our identity and eKYC solution and their network, that is for us to, one, pull their data down into our network where we can get price indication to help our users, but also we publish out. Here's a way for any of their DeFi partners to go, is this identity valid? Can I get a zero knowledge proof that they're actually not on the KYC? And we're an oracle into that network. And so it's been a long development. Like the tech on that is pretty tricky, but you can see where the future is going, right? All those DEXs, everyone that plugs into Chainlink will be able to verify, is this really a unique human being? Are they on the money laundering list? Can we transact with them compliantly? And I think we're the first ones to do that with them.
Might have time for one or two more questions. And then hopefully, Bob, if you don't mind, there are a bunch of questions in the chat, if you don't mind sticking around for a bit and just answering them, but I'll read a couple more out. What is your view on tokenized and fractionalized stocks and assets?
Love it. Everyone's talking about it these days. And the truth is, when you dig into it, most like what Binance and some of the other bigger exchanges are doing, really all they're doing is they have a broker dealer that holds stock on behalf of the user, and then you can visually see it on your screen. But they're not tokenizing it. Like, here's a token that goes into my ERC20 wallet, and I can trade it with Mark. They're not doing that. You can just see it in there centralized. And so if you saw what we do, that is, we have the license to actually move those tokens, right? And do all the regulatory compliance on it. We have the ability of minting NFTs that represent claims to stock. So you'll see from us, again, we're working through the regulatory compliance of who has to tell, in Europe, MFID, the stock derivative, which is what it is. How do you do a stock derivative, show it as a token? It then becomes something I hold in my wallet, and then I can share. I can use it as collateral. Here's 1/10 of a Google stock, and now I want to use it as collateral inside of a DeFi. Right? That's something that will be done, and we're actually very actively developing on that.
Awesome. One more question, and then I think we'll jump to the break. Last question here from Mo Chen. So what is, like, at a high level, what is Everest's role? Is it more similar to an exchange, a bank? How does Everest prevent incidents such as Quadriga CX from happening?
Quadra.
Well, I guess that was one of the now defunct Canadian exchanges where, is kind of written in scandal, I guess, where the CEO was holding the private keys and
it's the Bahama test. I could get hit by a bus, Everest still goes. So really answer this plainly as I possibly can. Everest's identity and the identity platform with the identity chain is run by a nonprofit foundation and Everest Network of Malta, that is the crypto custodian, is a separate entity. We could sell Everest Network Malta to the Chinese Communist Party. They still couldn't get at the identities. Okay, just to let you know. So the identity has governance around it where no one can turn it off. No one can get inside. It runs forever. There's nothing I can ever do about it. So again, I can get hit by a bus. In terms of preventing, are we similar to an exchange? Everest Network, the crypto custodian, is most similar to Paxos, I think. But if you look at the ecosystem of the foundation, which does identity, the crypto custodian, and the elements at play, what we look like mostly is what I would call a next generation, and I'll be specific on this one, next generation blockchain, which is Bitcoin in and out. That's all it could do. It's great. It's literally the alpha and beta. I think all kudos go to Vitalik and his team for actually doing if-then statements and smart contracts. But again, and he knows this, he forgot to do identity. And without identity, you can't grow a complex economy or society. You can't vote. Not really. All my DAO buddies, I keep telling them, like, the day they put $1 million in play and they're waiting for wallets to actually vote, someone will steal it. And so because they missed identity, you literally can only grow so far. And so if you think about the next generation of what crypto and blockchain needs, you need a unique human identity attached to all of this ecosystem. So that's how I view Everest.
Awesome. This is a really fascinating conversation. Thank you so much, Bob. Really appreciate the presentation. And on behalf of Mark, Victor, Imran, myself, and our entire community, thank you so much.